Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So behind me, we're going to take a look at the all-new 2022 Mercedes Benz EQS 450 Plus. Huge shout out to Mercedes Benz Northlake for providing this fully electric sedan for me today. Check out their website, that link is down in the description. The EQS that you see behind me is finished off in graphite gray metallic, and they have an MSRP just over $102,000. And to start off today's review, let's talk about what powers this EQS. So this has a 107.8 kilowatt lithium ion battery pack that is paired to a single speed transmission. This pumps out 329 horsepower and 417 pound-feet of torque. That power sent to the rear wheels. This weighs in right around 5,600 pounds, but it will do 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds with a top speed of 130 miles an hour, and it also has a total range of 350 miles. This has a wheelbase of 126.4 inches. Its overall length is 207.3. It has a width of 75.8 and a height of 59.6 inches. As we move on to the exterior styling now for this all-new fully electric Mercedes-Benz, let's start off with the grille design, because unlike a gasoline-powered version, you don't need quite as much cooling to the front components, so the entire grille is one piece with a really cool pattern running throughout it. Now, the Mercedes-Benz badge is also a forward-facing sensor for the adaptive cruise. There's even a forward-facing camera nicely tucked up underneath. Now, this has parking sensors that are integrated throughout, and it even has LED headlights, DRLs, and turn signals. What I love about the DRL is that strip actually continues its way through the upper section of that grille. There's a chrome trim piece just above that. The headlight housing blends in very nicely with the bodywork surrounding it, so it almost looks like one continuous piece. There are some cutouts in the lower section along with more of that chrome trim, and then some black trim on the very outer corners with a little bit more chrome trim in the lower section. There's another Mercedes-Benz badge at the base of the hood. Now, the hood on this does open up, but underneath it is really just windshield washer fluid, as well as access to the battery if you need to jump this or jump another car. So it is accessible, not a whole lot. There's no storage or anything. But for the side design, this has a set of 21-inch wheels with the two-tone color. This also has regenerative braking as well, as you would expect for an electric vehicle. Now, the side mirrors are body colored. This has the turn signals as well as the camera. You can see the EQS badge. It has a full panoramic sunroof. There's more chrome trim surrounding the windows. It's also on the two-tone door handles and running along the lower section. For the rear, this has the LED taillights with a connector bar running right through the middle of that power trunk. There's the badge over on that left side. All of the backup sensors are right in the middle. There's some chrome trim in the very lower section. Now, the backup camera is actually hidden up underneath the license plate area, so it will only open up when you put this into reverse. This even has a small trunk-mounted spoiler. And now, working our way to the cargo space, I can actually use the Mercedes-Benz badge to open this up. You can use the key fob as needed. And like I just mentioned, with the hatchback design, this doesn't have a traditional trunk. You have a lot more interior storage with the entire back opening up. Over on the driver's side is a very deep compartment. You have a lot of room when the back seat's up. There's even some storage up underneath the floor. So if I open this up, pretty deep compartment. I might be able to fit my camera bag under there. So that gives you reference for the amount of room. And then you can also fold the back seats down and remove that cover if you need to. It gives you a lot more interior space to fit in some larger items. Now, with the power hatch, you can close and lock the vehicle. The one on the left side will just close it. And then as we move on to the back seats now, I'm going to lock the vehicle just by using the Mercedes-Benz badge, because as you can tell, the door handles are now flush with the bodywork. In order to get in, I just need to put enough pressure on the door handle for it to pop out. You can use the back section to lock it, and you can do that in all four corners. Now, for this door panel, it's finished off in leather and some very nice brush trim surrounding the release handle. This has the Burmester audio sound system. Lock and unlock is finished off in brushed aluminum. There's some piano black surrounding that and a decent amount of room in the lower section of the door. The Mercedes-Benz badge is also an illuminating badge, which is cool to see. And then taking a look at the leather seats, they have a plush headrest, so you're going to be very comfortable, along with a unique design running down the inserts. Definitely a cool design. Now, at 5'10", I can make my way into the back seats, where I do have the front seat set at my height. I have plenty of room for my feet and my legs. There's also a storage bin behind both front seats. Right in the middle are two air vents, and then all of the climate controls that you need for your rear seat passenger. So there's fan speed for the dual zone system. There's the temperature, where you like the air to go. pretty neat to see this is one button, but just depending on where you push on that button, it will control all of those different vitals. And then right in the middle, there is an armrest. You can also fit your phone right in this little storage area there that pops out, which is pretty neat to see. And then here's a look at visibility, a little bit bulky over that pillar, but you do have glass on both sides. And then this also has very nice strips running just underneath all of that leather. This does have a moonroof for the backseat passenger, so the dome lights are on each corner there. Definitely very nice to be in the back seats. But as we make our way to the front seats now, the door panel's finished off just like the rear. However, there's the addition of all the memory seating adjustments. These are heated and ventilated. You can actually adjust the passenger front seat by pushing on that and using all those controls. There's lock and unlock, the power folding side mirror adjustments, all the window controls, even a release for that rear hatch, and the same design for these front seats. It's definitely a cool and unique look. It's just as easy to hop into these front seats where the steering wheel is completely covered in solid black leather. There's some brushed chrome accents along with all of the piano black. But let's fire this up. With my foot on the brake, that button is located down in the middle and we can bring this to life. And looking at this massive digital gauge cluster, you have a lot of information that you can go through. Using these buttons over on the left side of the steering wheel, underneath that is all the cruise and adaptive cruise control settings. So if I push on home right now, you can see the assistance, which was just shown. If I click on the navigation, this will pop up in the entire screen view. So you have a lot of graphics for that. There's also different driving modes or graphic modes that you can choose from just depending on what you feel and what you'd like to see. So as you can tell, we have two there. The last one is understated, which is a little bit more calm. And if I go back to classic now, when you go into this mode, you can actually scroll through a lot of information within the center. So just like an ordinary digital gauge cluster with all this information that you can monitor. So it's pretty cool to see that. Now, if I scroll up one, these are all the adjustments for the heads-up display. So just depending on the information that you'd like to see, you can go through settings, you can even shut it off too. So it's pretty neat that you have the option to do that, just depending on what you'd like to see for the day. Now over on this right side, all of these controls are for the center infotainment system. And then underneath that, there's Bluetooth and voice commands, along with volume for the radio, and even a favorites button. So you can configure that depending on what you use the most. Now over on this left side is the headlight adjustments, along with the electronic parking brake. There's one air vent, and as you can tell, the entire center screen, so all three of these, measures in just around 54 inches if you add them all up. So it's pretty crazy to see this gauge cluster, infotainment, passenger setup all in one. Now there's two air vents and some brush trim running all the way to the passenger side. It makes its way to that trim piece that I mentioned earlier, which is pretty cool to see. There's even Alcantara and stitching on the entire dashboard. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the heads-up display currently with all of that information. Very cool to see that displayed. Now, right in the middle, you have a lot more information that you can go through. The home button is right in the middle, or like I mentioned earlier, you can use everything on the steering wheel. So currently, we are looking at the navigation. It is currently set up with a destination, and that will actually pop up on the far right of that heads-up display. So it's nice to have that, of course. And then if you want to go through some more of this information, you can use all of these shortcuts down below. So we have a shortcut to dynamic. This is the different driving modes where there's eco, comfort, you have sport mode, and an individual mode. So just depending on how you'd like to drive. There's also a shortcut to the camera system. So you can see the top-down view along with the different angles, just depending on what you'd like to see. Now, what's awesome about this system is you can actually GPS coordinate when you would like this to pop up. So if you're pulling into your driveway somewhere that you use often, it will automatically pop up so that way you can have that visibility ready to go. Now, right in the middle is an EQ button. So if I push on that, you can monitor the charge. You have the charging, your standard program here that you can go into just depending on where you're charging as well. You can look at your range along with your consumption too. So all of that information for the electric power and all of that, which is pretty cool to have. Now, right next to that, if I push on the car icon, these are for all of the favorites that you can set up on the steering wheel. You have the steering assist, even snow chains, which you can put on, and a bunch of settings that you can go into just depending on what you need to set up. Now, over on the right side is all of the volume adjustments for the radio. You can shut off the screen, mute it. This even has the fingerprint sensor, which you can use as needed, and then the engine start-stop button right in the middle. Now, as you can tell, this screen is much wider than it appears with the navigation. So you have all of that information nicely laid out. And as you can tell, the lower section has been fixed. So this is for all of the temperature adjustments. You have your fan speed, the climate menu right in the middle to go through all of that. So it's nice that you don't have to go to a different screen. All of that is laid out very nicely. Now, right in the middle, we have some more of the wood trim. If I open this up, you have a lot more space with 2 cup holders, a wireless charging pad, some auxiliaries, a little bit more space on that left side. And if I close this up, we can take a look at even more storage space up underneath. There's a massive amount of room, even a strap, so you could put some items there if you don't want them to roll around. So it gives you a lot of front storage space, including the center armrest, where you have a lot more room. This is finished off in more of that Alcantara. And then over on the passenger side, you'll notice that there's a 3rd screen. Now, you do have to be sitting here in order for this power button to appear, and it looks just like the infotainment system as well as the gauge cluster. So you can go through the EQ and monitor all this information just like you saw earlier. If I swipe down, you have some other shared content you can look at. We can go into the navigation too. So you pretty much have 4 different screens to view this navigation on all 3 of these, and even the heads-up display. Pretty interesting to see. There's phone and radio along with media, and you can go into your comfort as well as different settings too. So it's nice to have that amount of usable information for your passenger. And then underneath that, just by pushing on this button, the glove box will appear where you have a good amount of room for all of that information. And we'll take another look at this interior as well as the gauge cluster, which is pretty much the entire dash. Awesome to see that. Like I mentioned earlier, this has the sunroof, so you have that for your front seat passengers too. All those adjustments are right in the middle, and this even has the touch sensitive dome lights as well. As we set off now behind the wheel for this all new fully electric Mercedes Benz, this is probably one of the coolest electric vehicles that I've been behind the wheel of, simply because of the amount of technology and screens that are in this model. So unlike some of the other brands that are offered where there's maybe just one screen in the middle or not even a gauge cluster screen, this has 3 different screens plus the size of this heads-up display. So I'm very impressed with the amount of technology and how easy everything is to go through as well. So even though we have this massive 54 some inch screen, when you add them up, it's very easy to go through, just like any other Mercedes Benz really. So all of the buttons are pretty much laid out the same, which just makes it that much easier to go through if you're familiar with Mercedes Benz and you want an electric vehicle from them. So it's pretty cool to be able to check this out. Now, this is on the lower trim level, I'll say, for the EQS. They are going to come out with ones that are a little bit more powerful. So I believe there's going to be 2 more that are even more powerful. So this is the base version in a sense, and we'll give it some gas here, or some power. And you hear nothing, you're up to speed just like that. With electric vehicles, all of that power and torque is pretty much instant as soon as you put your foot on the accelerator there. If we put it to sport mode, you'll hear a little graphic there letting you know that you are into the next mode. So we'll give it another quick acceleration. And maybe the camera can pick up the ambient lighting is actually turning colors right now, which is pretty interesting to see, just depending on the amount of acceleration, I'm assuming. We'll give it an acceleration here so that way you can see that again, because I did not know that. And it's white, it's red. That's pretty cool, little gimmicky, but that's what you get with the ambient lighting strip. And aside from that, it's kind of just like what you would expect from a Mercedes Benz as far as all of the interior materials go and everything, especially for the price point. So I could see this being a great daily driver because aside from being electric, it's also very comfortable and quiet. So you hear no engine, no exhaust, no wind, not really much road noise. I'm going about 45 miles an hour. That's going to be about the speed for today. And you could drive this every day. We have a range of around 350 miles or so, which I think is pretty decent for fully electric vehicles. I know there's some other brands, maybe high 200s or so. 350 I think is pretty respectable for this type of vehicle. Now we do have these paddle shifters like I mentioned earlier, and basically it's going to go from strong recuperation. You can also go to normal and then no recuperation. So I'm thinking that that is for the regenerative braking, and it can be tied in with the one pedal braking. So when I take my foot off the accelerator, we slow down much more than we were doing before. And as we switch over to the POV angle, you can see what it's like to be behind the wheel of almost this futuristic style with all of the screens and just the driving style and position that you get with this EQS. It is so quiet as you would expect. I still have the one pedal braking on basically in the strongest setting, so I really don't have to tap the brake that hard, which is cool to have. Now, as far as turning radius goes, as we make a quick U-ey, very, very tight, and we'll give it an acceleration. You hear some sound effects coming from those speakers, almost like you're in a spaceship with the lighting. I don't know if the camera can pick that up as well, but definitely cool to see that. I do love the amount of technology that's offered, and I don't know if the camera can pick up the heads-up display, but it is pretty large right now. It's one of the biggest heads-up display screens that I've personally seen, and even with the navigation when that's on and running, you have that displayed very nicely for that heads-up display. But as far as driving this, like I mentioned earlier, this would be a great daily just because of how comfortable it is. And being a fully electric vehicle, personally, I would think that this is a better city driving vehicle just because you have to find where to charge it and things like that. But if you're buying an electric vehicle, you know what you're getting into, I hope, as far as having to charge it. You can charge it at home, so that way when you leave for the morning, it's ready to go. But as far as long distance, still positives and negatives to filling up a gasoline vehicle and waiting to charge a vehicle. But for the car that it is from Mercedes Benz with this fully electric vehicle, I think it's pretty awesome. And we'll give it one less acceleration for today's video. And we're up to speed. Not crazy quick, but it'll get up and move. It is a heavy sedan. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this walk-around review and test drive behind the wheel of this 2022 Mercedes Benz EQS 450 Plus. Once again, huge shout out to Mercedes Benz Northlake for providing this for me today. Check out their website, give the video a huge thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and smash that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our daily uploads. I will see you all in the next video.